What's going on, everyone? Mitch from RespectMyReason.com back with another episode of the Monday Morning Joint. Hope everyone out there is doing a good or having a great start to the week. It's early. We were in New York City for MJ Unpacked this week. So I guess if you're on the East Coast, it's 10 a.m., man. You're probably pouring up that second cup of coffee. If you're on the West Coast, you're probably just getting started on your first cup of coffee, man. But we're coming to you with the morning joint back in the Pacific time zone after a week in New York City. It was a great experience at MJ Unpacked. Checking in with all the people out there in the Northeast or from around the map. A lot of friends from the Pacific Northwest were out that way as well. Definitely a great show for us. Met quite a bit of people from the LinkedIn universe out there. Met some new friends. Sorry, just getting the sharing going across the platforms. No, but it was a great show for us. I know a lot of other people had a great show chatting around. We just dropped a recap article on the website this morning, talking about our trip out there in the city. We got interviews dropping. I think there's already one interview on our YouTube, but there's another one scheduled for today. Those will be on LinkedIn as well. We got in quite a bit of interviews while it Unpacked. Moderated a panel on cannabis as a lifestyle brand, and we're a part of the Media Mixtape Volume 1 after party at Harbor NYC. It was a busy couple days in the city at the Hilton Midtown. Nice to be back, but this week, just tomorrow, we're headed out on the road again to Hall of Flowers. So going from New York City to the epicenter of the Northeast to the epicenter of cannabis on the West Coast, being Hall of Flowers in California. So excited about all those. But MJ Unpacked, man, it was a great trip. Feedback from the event. The attendees, the people working in the booths were out there hustling, man. I saw, I think I mentioned in the article, I saw the least amount of cell phone zombies, when you walk by a booth and people are just in their phone. Either they're getting paid to be there and sure that's what they're doing, or they paid to be there and that's what they choose to be doing. Never quite understood that. But people were getting out, people were chatting, people were moving and grooving, people were having conversations to quickly get to the point of what they were looking for, which I always respect. As much doom and gloom as there is in the industry, there was a tone of optimism. Maybe it's because people were spending that money getting out on the road to make some stuff happen, even though the market's not quite there. But there was a touch of optimism. I talked to a lot of legacy operators at Unpacked as well. Obviously, New York is just now coming online, so there's a ton of people who have been operating in the cannabis space, pre-adult use. Plenty of people that have been incarcerated for that due to New York City's harsh drug laws of the past. So there was a lot of people in the legacy market, a lot of people that have been arrested for cannabis, and quite a bit of farmers. I know people, when they usually talk about these B2B conferences, the farmers, the plant touchers aren't there. It's just the execs, this, that, and the third. And there's quite a bit of farmers out there. And, one of the common themes that I said, there's two common conversations that popped up a lot. Number one was this legacy market, gray market operators and their desire to get to adult use. That's obviously rampant in California, but a lot of people on the other side are trying to get there. There's just clearly not a path, and they've been doing this for a while. Get to that more in a second. And second of all is not just farmers, but operators, owner operators. We're talking about COD terms in the markets that allow that. I live in Washington State. By law, it has to be COD, but in California, many of these other states, it's net 30, which generally means net 120 at dispensaries. And an attendee told me something that really stuck with me. I can't remember their name, but they said that these retail stores are getting a chance, keyword getting a chance, at building their business off of brands and farms as their personal bank. Now, he said getting a chance because some retail people are thriving and are profitable. Some are failing miserable, but they're spending brands money, fronted out product money to at least get a chance to get profitable. And that's, it's up to someone to take their business where they need to take it. But they're doing it off the backs of brands and farmers who are getting paper thin margins off this product. And that just stuck with me. There's no traditional bank loans in this, but you can get loaned a ton of product from operators and try and get your thing going without paying people back. And a lot of these things are enforced. And it's not just California. I know it's running rampant and popular in California, but I talked to an operator in Oregon. I believe it was Oregon. Or I know they're in Oregon, but I believe they were referring to the Oregon market. This person operated in 2 different states. They said that 2 years ago, 80% of their business was COD, or 90% of their 80 to 90% of their business was COD. Now, today, 80% of their business is net 30, and the vast majority of those are failing to pay within 30 days. So it's a common pain point. People are getting brands and operators are getting squeezed all over. Clearly, retailers are unable to pay their bills, which means two things: you can't be profitable in this retail business, which I believe is a lie, or two, retail businesses are just simply not have enough funding to withstand losses to get to profitability, or they're just unable to make the decisions to get to profitability, and their purchasing is absolutely trash. It's a difficult game. I did purchasing in traditional retail outside of this. Always a difficult thing to have stock in the back, things you didn't pay for. I worked in sports apparel. Net 30 was a commonality in that, but in that world, there were big brands like Nike, New Era, Adidas, Mitchell and S. And if you didn't pay, if you weren't current with those brands, they cut you off. No new product, pull your stuff out the shelf. And the hard thing with those is you had to apply to be a retailer for some of those brands, and you wanted to be in good standing, because if you're a sports retail store and you can't carry Nike, you're going to have a very hard time being a successful sports retail store. So I know the market isn't quite developed like that. But even with this conundrum of COD and net 30 payments, as we see some of these big brands come up and let these retailers know you've got to pay your bills, you've got to stick to what you said you were going to do, or you cannot carry this brand, and you will be very hard to be successful without this brand. Stores are going to have a hard time getting in the mindset of paying people. And obviously, even with that, then they're going to pay the big established brands potentially, and not the smaller guys. It's clearly an issue. It's happening. I'm hearing this literally at MJ Unpacked. We heard about this from operators all around the country. Retailers are simply not paying their bills. I haven't met a retailer that's upfront about not paying their bills, but they're clearly out there. But back to that the other comment that I saw, or conversation that I said was pretty rampant at MJ Unpacked, was the desire for legacy operators to get an adult use. While we're in New York, the legacy operator, the pusher, the dealer, there's a ton out there. New York City is huge. The population out there is crazy. So they've been smoking. I mean, and a lot of people have been smoking weed for a long time. So there's always been someone supplying that. And New York really, although now you can smoke weed anywhere you smoke cigarettes, it used to be pretty anti-cannabis, especially for minorities. I mean, New York was really one of the poster childs of the stop and frisk era, and so I met multiple people that worked at dispensaries and in the industry that were subjected to stop and frisk back in the day and arrested for cannabis possession. Literally walking down the street, minding their own business, shook down because of the color of their skin, arrested for cannabis possession. And what's crazy is I talked to people in New York that were thrown in jail for cannabis possession. I was arrested on the West Coast for cannabis possession in the early 2000s. I was cuffed and released. It fucked some stuff up for me, but I didn't have to go to jail. And I had like 38, 40 grams on me. I'm talking to people that were literally spent weekend in jail over 1 to 3 grams of cannabis in New York. So New York, people of color in the city and state of New York were clearly targeted and paid the price for cannabis in the war on drugs. And what we're seeing right now is social equity advocates are getting a head start in the legal market. And that's honestly for good reason after talking with the people. But how it's rolling out, it's incredibly botched by the regulators in the system. But honestly, what market hasn't done that? There's 3 recreational dispensaries online in Manhattan, and I don't know, they estimate there's 1,500, 1,000 gray market shops. If you search cannabis dispensary on Google, you're going to get a couple of medical shops and a ton of trap shops and a ton of gray area shops. Honestly, the legal shops didn't even come up. So when it comes to a search traffic perspective, the legal shops are at a disadvantage. With the market coming online, they converted over only outdoor and greenhouse hemp growers to the recreational market. So we're currently in the recreational market, there's limited stores, limited product in these stores, no indoor flower. I repeat, no indoor flower, and limited product quantities. Although there is I was impressed on how many brands and how many different types of products were at the recreational dispensary. But these these recreational dispensaries are definitely operating at a disadvantage now, cost wise, brand wise. Gray market shops are advertising the biggest brands, the hype brands from California, and a lot of what I saw isn't bootleg. It definitely seems to be real. I know we're in the land of New York, so there's definitely going to be bootlegs and bootlegs that look close. But we purchased a couple products, looked at the batch numbers, the test numbers. It appeared that, obviously real deal California cannabis, Oregon, Colorado cannabis, Michigan cannabis is making its way to New York. Cali is for sure the winner in terms of the products you see on the shelf. People talk about Cali Bud as if it is a quality, that's a standard of quality, or even cookies is used as a standard, is almost like indoor good weed in Mylar exotics is just kind of known as cookies a little bit. Not to everyone. I know people are in the know, but at some of these smoke shops and gray area shops, you're not dealing with the people that are the most passionate for the plant or the most educated bud tenders. Not saying that some of those people aren't, but you're dealing with like, convenience store attendants who are just they're looking to move product. We did see some California product that was 2 years old on the shelf. And in talking to one of our writers who's been out there 6 months, it's not uncommon to see 1 to 2 year old California product on the shelf. So some of these California people are, refusing to take the L on their products, and so shipping it out there. At the end of the day, if the consumer's happy and safe, you know, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. Whatever a consumer pays for, if they willingly pay for it and are happy with their purchase, the quality, the date, I don't know. It's subjective for me to care about what someone else is doing. But anyways, it's very difficult for these recreational shops to compete. The way to spot a smoke shop that sells cannabis is, first off, in Manhattan, it's just got to be a smoke shop. Nah, but there's a shit ton of neon runts and Jungle Boys lights, just like in the beer world, Miller Lite, Bud Light. If you're from the PNW, Rainier, these big neon lights. Whoever's making those is making a killing, because I saw runts lights on every block. But that's like, they have the green plus neon light, a runts light, a Jungle Boys light, or it'll just straight up say THC or dispensary, and that's how you identify what's selling cannabis. But pretty much every single smoke shop, which there's one on about, not even exaggerating, every other block is selling cannabis. When we stopped in those to pick up some blunts or just shop and poke our head, there was, in every single store we stopped in, there was somebody in there looking at the product and asking about, oh, is this one better than that one? How do you like the Dabwoods? What do you think of that strain? From the other side of the counter, the majority of what I heard in the gray market was like, yeah, it's good. Yeah. Everything was, it's good. Yeah. We did stop at the Union Square Travel Agency, the third open recreational cannabis dispensary in New York City, and it was very refreshing to go in there in such an infant market. You'd think that the education and the bud tenders would be terrible. In shopping a lot in Massachusetts, something I've spoke out about is it's painful to go in there and talk about THC percentage and indica sativa hybrid, and that's about where the conversation stops. And that market's been online for a while. And out in New York, we did find, ironically, at Union Square Travel Agency, the security guard of all people, he was giving us some shit. So by the time we got in the store, and giving us some shit in a good way, we was being playful. But by the time we got in the store, we were joking around. The vibes were high, and he walked us around the store. One of the security guards, there were still security guards up front securing the place, but one of those security guards walked us around the dispensary and gave us his opinion on the products, what we wanted, what we didn't want, why we didn't want it, why he thought we'd want something. Really, honestly, a great bud tending experience from someone that's not even their position, and made it clear that the employees and the staff there have tried the majority of, if not all of those products. So they're actually knowledgeable on it. Again, I'm not trying to beat up on Mass. I love Mass, but going to Massachusetts, one of my biggest criticisms of that market is that bud tenders, you go into a store, they're asking you, do you want indica sativa hybrid? They're asking you what THC percentage you're looking for. And then you ask them questions and they proceed to tell you they haven't tried 80 to 90% of the products on there, and can't even, not only that, they don't even attempt to give you an opinion on that. Whereas in New York, I felt like almost every product I asked to, I got an opinion from the staff, whether it was good, bad, or indifferent. So that was definitely refreshing to see. Again, the fact there was no indoor flower, not disrespecting outdoor, but just for me, I didn't really find stuff that I loved. It was better than I expected, but I didn't find stuff that I loved, and it makes it difficult to compete to the gray against these popular California brands on the gray market. And one thing that I just have to speak on is that the regulators and the industry out there really clearly wanted to give social equity a leg up. And me, I have a question. Like most things, sadly, is that all for fluff and hype and the putting it out there to say, look at how good we're doing, look at these good things that we're doing. Just the old political currency, is that the only thing they're exchanging? Because right now, only having legacy market operators out there when capital is difficult to acquire, there's not a ton of shops, and the gray market is run rampant. The city, the regulators, they're still trying to figure out what they're going to do with this gray market. Hint, I don't think they'll ever stop it. But they're still trying to figure out what they do with it. And while they're trying to figure out to do with it, it's just stifling the recreational industry. And guess who's the only people in the recreational industry? People that are of social equity, people that they've deemed might have inadequate resources to get into this space. Those are the people they're sending out to be the test dummies to compete with this thriving existing legacy and gray market while they figure out what to do that. So they're really this political currency they're exchanging for the people to say, pat us on the back, look at what we're doing, what the good that we're doing. It just really seems like it could be an opportunistic move to just try and get that political currency while they try and figure out what's doing, while those people really struggle to maintain any sort of business model. And by the time they kind of do figure it out, then we'll see some of these MSOs and big money people come in and have the money, the infrastructure, and the game will be a little bit more sorted out, and they can come cut through the noise a little bit easier. I know that the system might not be making all these diabolical plans to just thwart the culture and the people for big business. I don't necessarily think it's always as plotted out like that, while I adjust my tinfoil hat, but it does seem that there's an inevitable outcome that's going to happen, a very likely outcome that's going to happen, that's going to further perpetuate the idea of why it's so important for social equity. The social equity program is going to how it's going to happen, and the bumps and tumbles it's going to grab on the way. It's just going to be a prime example of why it needed to exist and be protected in the first place. So, shout out everyone out there operating. Definitely a difficult road ahead of them, but it's dope. It's exciting. Cannabis is legal in New York City. And we hope to see these people operate, because again, we talk to a lot of people from the legacy market, and the thing is there's always this conversation of this tension between legacy and corporate and what have you. But a lot of these people on that side of the market want to get over to this side of the market, to the adult use, the recreational, play it by the book. They've just been doing this for so long, just because there's now a legal way. It's always been the illegal way. The illegal way has always been there. Just because there's a legal way doesn't mean they're going to be like, you know what? I'm done what I've been doing for 5 years, 10 years, second, third generation, and I'm just going to only play it this way. Or better yet, I'm going to go get a job in Wendy's while I wait in line to play it this way. That's not going to happen, especially with that New York hustler spirit. They're going to go after it. They're going to take that risk. They're going to do whatever they got to do to try and get their piece of the pie. New York is literally a city built upon people coming from all over the map, regardless of their background and resources, trying to get a piece of the pie. So the fact that we're seeing people out there, legal, illegal, gray, white, black, market-wise, going after a piece of the pie, should not be surprised. It's on brand for the city. It's on brand for the spirit of the city. And as a consumer, I say, on the side of the gray market, for me, it's a beautiful glimpse into the future. The inevitable federal legalization of cannabis will see the consumer to be able to go into a store and look at products from multiple markets, from multiple regions, to talk about products that are cultivated in these regions. Obviously regions right now are broken into the states, the California, the Oregon, Washington's talked about a little bit, the Colorado. But even further, we'll be talking about the Humboldts. We'll be talking about the Santa Barbara. We'll be talking about a little bit finer regions, some of us connoisseurs. But the general consumer will understand the regions, at least from where states come from. I think it's fairly well known across the industry. Extracts that come from Colorado, for good, for bad, for accurate, for wrong, are considered to be prime. And flower that says grown in California on the jar is considered to be a premium to be something of desired. Again, for good, for bad, for wrong, for indifferent, just in the general mass population consumers' eyes. Grown in California, it's like gluten free on a fucking bag of cookies or something. You know what I mean? It's just maybe not cookies, right? Because I like them gluten filled cookies, but it's just a strong statement as a CPG good. And when you go to these gray market stores, you see that Cali warning logo everywhere, and people think I'm getting great product. And so, again, to this forward thinking, inevitable future, you'll be able to go into a dispensary and look at products from all sorts of regions. Right now, these New York gray market shops are the only shops that are a window into that future. Might not be exactly what you like. It might not be what you think it's going to be. You might feel a certain way of it, but I think there is something magical about being able to go into a store stigma free. I'm not ID'd at the front. I'm going in same way there's liquor or beer in there, same way there's tobacco in there, 21 up goods that you can't buy without an ID. I can go in there and there's a cannabis section and it's featuring products from multiple different states. Again, I know it's not fully licensed and legal, but I think that is a window into this future. And it is just dope to get that little, back to the future type view of cannabis. And so people feel a lot of different ways about it, but I think that is definitely fire. And it's exciting to experience that. It's exciting to experience the industry. Cannabis terroir will be huge. Absolutely, man. Absolutely, it's going to be. And I think when it comes to the terroir, I think a lot of people talk about Humboldt and NorCal and Mendo, which, trust me, I've been up there. It's magical, and I do believe from many decade, 2 decades of smoking product from out there. There's something about that, but I do think there's multiple levels of consumers. Much when we look at wine, a lot of the people that, when we look at wine, the people that care about the terroir to a certain area are the snobs, are the connoisseurs, are the people spending more per bottle on wine. But much like that, in cannabis, there are the people who still spend a lot of money on a product, but not as much per unit and don't care. They're not a connoisseur level, but they still likely know that champagne, it comes from an area in France. They still likely know that good weed comes from Napa, or sorry, good wine comes from Napa, Sonoma Valley. And then some people take it a step further and they might know that good wine comes from the Columbia Valley in Washington if they've been around. It's starting to come from out here. But I say all that to say that even the terroir, there's kind of two levels of that. There's the basic mass population. You just know a couple little things. That's good, that's bad. Again, right or for wrong. Jose Cuervo, in my opinion, terrible tequila, but it's done its branding where people think that it's good stuff, to the masses. And then there's obviously the connoisseurs of that. And so there's different levels to people that care or know or educated about a specific region, and whether they're right or wrong, it doesn't matter. They're still drawing some stuff from that. Southern Oregon has the same elevation atmosphere as Humboldt. Absolutely. I purchased in the legacy market, I purchased a lot more weed from Southern Oregon. But even to that point, back in the day, some people would lie about weed from Southern Oregon and say it was from the Emerald Triangle because it commanded a higher ticket per turkey bag. And even to the end consumer, if you told people I have something from Humboldt or the Emerald Triangle, even if it was from Southern Oregon, it commanded a little bit more of a ooh or a ah and converted more sales. So that terroir definitely matters, and there's definitely levels to that. To the consumer, I always say, back in the day, or talking to people that operated back in the day, if you start talking about Humboldt and Mendo and they bring up, like Nick on here, Southern Oregon, I'm like, you operated in there, what's up. But the average consumer, even if they purchase weed on a weekly basis, they might not even know that. There's a strong likelihood that they don't know that they would prefer a Mendo or Humboldt grown over a Southern Oregon, whereas people that are in the market, maybe for selling things, that Emerald Triangle carried a little bit more weight, but you knew quality wise, you'd be just as happy with Southern Oregon. So that terroir has those multiple levels. And that's a prime example. I dealt with that in the legacy market all the time. Southern Oregon versus Emerald Triangle. Anyways, that was MJ Unpacked. There's a recap article in the comments already live on the site. We got interviews with professionals from New York and all across the country dropping all this week. Stay tuned for those. And beyond MJ Unpacked, we're about to be at Holla Flowers here this week, flying down to Santa Rosa tomorrow. We'll be there Wednesday and Thursday. Well, I mean, really tomorrow night through Friday, but Wednesday and Thursday are the 2 days of the event. We'll be interviewing cannabis industry. Joey, myself, will be interviewing cannabis industry professionals around Hollow Flowers. So we're literally going straight from the hottest, newest market in the country in New York to this mature market, whether we're talking adult use or not, this mature market of cannabis consumers, cannabis, buyers, sales reps, and just the mecca of cannabis and brands in California at Hollow Flowers. So we're getting this. I'm super stoked these 2 weeks, getting just such great perspective on the industry, the plant, and just talking to operators and professionals to see what they're feeling, what the temperature is. I really get inspired by that. Even when people talk about the problems, it gets me inspired to think about solutions and possibilities and try and squeeze lemonade out of lemons. And then we talk about the wins and the successes. That inspires me because in a market where not everyone is getting those wins and successes, it can inspire me that they're out there and we can go get our own. So I'm super excited to go back to Hollow Flowers. Big shout out to their team for continually having us out there as media and press. If you're out there, please tap in. We'd love to link up with you. If you see us out there, if you see my 6'4", power forward frame walking around, holler at me, man. Would love to connect with you. Coming up in other music news, so the inaugural Flower Expo is coming to Massachusetts in June. So some of the people from Hollow Flowers set up and doing their own trade show called the Flower Expo in the middle of Massachusetts here in June. I believe June 13th and 14th. I need to verify that real quick. Hold on a second. But the Flower Expo is going to have consumption. Consumption. Oh, 14th and 15th. Excuse me. I was 2 days off. 14th, 15th in June. In the middle of Massachusetts. Flower Expo is going to be built like Hollow Flowers, connecting brands to buyers, buyers to brands, and there will be consumption out there, much like Hollow Flowers. So if you're in the Mass or the Northeast market, definitely check out that Flower Expo. We're going to be out there. Next on the news, the QWIK liquids. We did a feature on QWIK liquids, water soluble drink additive or water soluble THC nano technology. You can use QWIK liquids is used to make edibles and make beverages. One of those beverages being the Quick Drops beverage additive. I had those last night, hence why the eyes are a little bit low. I had a microdose beverage last night. Dropped some of those into my 2.5, and jumped it up to a 22.5 beverage, and definitely enjoyed it. Got me right, got me where I needed to. But read all about QWIK liquids, man. We've spent the last couple months learning more about that technology, trying the products out a lot. They just launched out in Massachusetts and a couple other markets. So some dope technology, dope team. Really look forward to seeing the growth of that. And again, I just had the products last night. That's not a solicited, not a paid advertisement. I literally had the product last night. So we stand by that. Any brands I'm excited to see at Hollow Flowers, man, I'll say this. I'm not sure if they're vending. I'm sure they are. But the two brands I'm always most excited to see at Hollow Flowers, I'm a big flower guy. Oak Fruitland. I got to see what flower they're cooking up, man. I really like what they cook out. Their V Power strain, fire, and Laughing Gas, man. Joey Diaz, cannabis brand. Celebrity brands have a certain sort of opinion. Joey Diaz, no disrespect to him, is not your Bella Thorne, not that A-list celebrity, but man, that is the right mix of someone that knows what the fuck they're talking about and has an eye for creativity and putting a team together. That Laughing Gas brand is gas. It's no laughing matter. It is just straight gas. So I'm always excited to check out Oak Fruitland and Laughing Gas. Beyond that, Maven Genetics. I don't know if they have a booth out there or not. Always trying to see what they're putting out. Ember Valley, always trying to see what they're putting out. Trying to think of some other brands. Ray's Lemonade, a Washington brand launching in California from home, expanding to Cali, much like myself. Excited to see them, see what they're up to. I know they're just about to launch or are launching in California. And we got a couple other cool things going on out there. So super excited to see quite a bit of stuff at Hollow Flowers. Next up on cannabis news, LMC presents the High Design documentary series. So I'm sure people have been seeing this. If not, you've been sleeping under a rock. But LMC and his High Design series on YouTube has been blowing up, getting millions of views, profiling some of the biggest brands. That talks about Burner and Cookies. Jokes up in the Runts crew. a lot of these different breeders, growers from California looking at the trap, looking at the development of markets from legacy to adult use. LMC has been a homie of mine. He's from up here in the Seattle area, same area I live. I've known him for many years. But this high design documentary series he's been doing has been blowing up the last year. He's been doing it for a couple years, but this last year, about 2 years ago, he did a ton of episodes, and then this last year really just upped the quality, did longer, more in-depth pieces beyond just knowing Luke, who puts that on. He does a great job pacing and structuring these documentaries. If you read the comments, he's got a crazy fan base. People are hungry to know the stories behind these brands and the legacy, the street, the trap that have made their way to adult use and impact adult use. They're just interested in the behind the scenes. So even if you're a business guy, even if you're a corporate guy, even if you don't care about this or have weird opinions about the trap or the black market, which makes you a weirdo if you're in the cannabis industry, in my opinion, there's a lot of game to learn from understanding these stories, because that shapes a lot of the customers, whether they're straight custies or the educated connoisseur customers. The legacy, and not just legacy is in black market, but the legacy and the history of cannabis and how it is evolved has a direct impact on the decision makers and the trendsetters of this industry. And much like everything else, the trendsetters might not get all the credit. The trendsetters might not, do the most sales volume, be the richest or the most profitable guy. It's usually going to be some fucking watered down cookie cutter bullshit mass produced version that was influenced by the trendsetter is the brand that we all know and becomes a Bud Light. And I'm not saying I don't know the history of Bud Light, so I'm not trying to talk shit about Bud Light, just using them for reference as this mass well-known brand. But it's usually music brands. It doesn't matter. The trendsetters set the influence. They're usually not the biggest or most well-known. So it's funny sometimes talking to corporate people when you talk about, oh, this guy's a trendsetter, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, yeah, but their sales volume or the EBITDA, whatever they're talking about, they are looking at straight numbers and facts, stock market bullshit, which is just usually a race of who's got the most money and influence. But when you look at influence on the game, a trendsetter, it's literally the fucking name, trendsetter. Man, you got to understand where these trends come from, who sets them, and what those look like. There's immense value in understanding that, even if you don't operate that and care about that. And apologies for using the F word so much. I'm coming back from New York. I felt at home just being able to curse left and right. I got to get a little bit more in my polite bag now that I'm back in Seattle. Actually, I'm in Seattle. I just not talk to people, pretend they don't exist. Speaking of Seattle, coming up in music news, the Seattle World Tour announces 2023 charity concert series lineup. Seattle World Tour is a 501(c) that is a collaboration between myself and the Respect My Region team and our good friends at All Star Opera, a local band, hip hop band out here in Seattle. We started this charity concert series a couple years ago. 2020 would have been our third annual. COVID thwarted that. And so we're just now doing our third concert series after doing two and a half years of digital series. Seattle World Tour is 5 nights in a row, 5 local shows featuring 5 lineups completely featuring local artists at 5 different historic Seattle music venues in 5 different Seattle neighborhoods, 5 nights in a row. It's a lot going in. But it's a really dope platform. It's by artists for artists. The entire goal is to give a platform and financial assistance to artists while doing something good for a cause. We started our own nonprofit, the Seattle World Tour Foundation, when we saw in 2020 a lot of the campaigns to save local music, save your neighborhood venue, donate to these campaigns to keep local music alive in your city. A lot of those campaigns using that language, the money ultimately filtered up to large-scale corporations, and a lot of these large-scale corporations that have been accused long before the news recently, has accused them of having monopolies on this industry and making it hard for independent and people of color operators in the music industry. It's something I've definitely seen firsthand and witnessed over the years. But anyways, we saw all these campaigns to donate money to save live music ultimately be like bail out these corporations that are already getting massive PPP and corporate bailouts during the COVID, the height of COVID, but nobody was doing anything for the artists who spend years working up to be able to get these venues to take them seriously and let them take their money and book a show. And then they work tirelessly to sell tickets to those or to get opening acts where they're not paid money. They're simply given drink tickets and an opportunity to perform next to an artist they look up to, again, while having to pack those venues. These local artists do everything to pack these venues while living in cities where the cost of living is crazy and there's not much money in art. From the standpoint, nobody was doing anything for the artists, and the artists had the hardest and one of the longest time being gig workers getting uh, relief from COVID. So we put together our own foundation. We'd worked with Mary's Place and things of that, and the Rainier Valley Food Bank previously, who we still work with the Rainier Valley Food Bank each year. But we started putting together these stipends for artists. So it's not much, but we give out $500 stipends to artists that they can put towards their career. If they need to pay their rent, pay their behind on utilities, go ahead and do that. If they got to pay for mixing, mastering, a couple hours of studio time, whatever they need, no questions asked. Artists can apply, tell us what they're going to do with the funds, but it's not a matter. They're not discriminated against whether they're going to use it for music, use it for rent. It does not matter. So we put together these $500 stipends. We've been able to give out, I believe, 20 to 30 of those over the last year. Through this organization. We don't come for money. It was not putting our money up. We just simply put our time up and don't pay ourselves for this platform. And part of that is doing 5 concerts, 5 nights in a row, where none of the staff is getting paid for that. All of the money is going straight to the artists that are performing. All of the tickets are split equally amongst the artists that perform. And then if they so choose, they can donate some or all of that to the fund. About 60% of the artists that work with us do that. Super dope. And then all of the money raised through donations is given out through these artist stipends. And we collaborate with people on merch that we sell. We've worked with Jones Soda to make custom bottles, auction things out, do a lot of different things to raise money people can financially give. So some of you people on LinkedIn that aren't from Seattle, don't live in Seattle, think this is a dope idea, you want to get involved. Once we launch this campaign in June, you can donate from afar. $5, $500, $5,000. Hey, bring them checkbooks now. Everything is greatly appreciated and goes to a great cause. For us, it's about giving financial resources to artists, but more so giving them a platform so they can build something that they can perpetually grab, financial gain, finances from. Next up, Benny the Butcher announces a new album with Alchemist and Hit Boy. Man, real hip hop is back. And then final, we have the Hot Music Friday recap. Check that out. Oh, no, not final. And then we also have the review on Netflix's Beef series featuring Stephen Yeun and Ali Wong. Definitely, I haven't checked that out, but I've been reading this review. It looks like I got to check that out. Again, I thank everyone for tuning in with us. This is a little bit longer of an episode trying to give perspective on the New York market. Big thank you to the MJ Unpacked family, George, Kim, Wendy, Evan, Morgan, everyone, Spencer, man, everyone over there. Thank you guys so much. I know there's more than that, but thank you guys for hosting us and all the work you guys put in New York City. Tuesday night, we flew in. We went down to see what our booth situation was looking like. There was nothing from MJ Unpacked, no signage, nothing at like 9 p.m. the night before. And I think registration started at 8 a.m. And there was a whole nother conference going on. I almost snuck in there and grabbed some little scrimp off the off the appetizer plates. I was plotting my food snatching. But then we came back at like 8 a.m. this morning. The next morning, everything was put up. So I understand how hard those guys hustled to put together a platform. And sure, that's their business, but they put together a platform. Their business is putting together a platform to connect other people that is very intentional with the value and really stresses out over making sure it's value for everyone there. And I sense that. I feel that. I got value from it. So I'm just very thankful for that group. It was a great time out there. Super dope checking out New York City and understanding where this legal market is growing to and seeing what the legacy market's doing. And again, we got interviews dropping today and all week on LinkedIn, YouTube from industry professionals at MJ Unpacked. Definitely stay tuned for that. And finally, we'll be at Hollow Flowers in Santa Rosa this week. If you see us, say what up. We'll be interviewing professionals from that and dropping a ton of content from there. So appreciate everyone for tapping in with us on this Monday morning joint. Make it a good week. Go ahead and get it moving. We'll talk to you guys.